Okay, let's talk about the US economy, because right now it is sending some seriously mixed signals. On the one hand, you hear about recession fears pretty much everywhere, but on the other, people are still out there shopping. So what is really going on? We're going to unpack this whole thing, what we're calling the consumer confidence paradox.
Right, this is the big question. It's a real head-scratcher, and it gets into something fascinating, the psychology of how we all think about money. It really feels like what we're worried about and how we're actually spending are just not lining up at all. So, let's break this down. On one side, you've got all the classic red flags for a recession, right? Inflation just won't quit. The Fed keeps hiking interest rates, and the job market is starting to look a little softer. But then you look at the other side, and it's a totally different story. Spending is robust, unemployment is still surprisingly low, and people are actually talking about splurging. See the problem? This is the heart of the paradox.
All right, so to get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with how people say they're feeling about their money. You know, are the vibes matching up with reality? Let's take a look.
And whoa, okay, this chart from McKinsey really tells a story. Look at this year-over-year change. Optimism is down 7 points, while pessimism is up 9 points. That's a 16-point negative swing in what's called net optimism. So, to put it simply, people are officially way more worried about where the economy is headed. The vibes? Definitely not good.
So, what's driving all that negativity? Well, here you go. Inflation is the big one. It's the top concern for almost half of everyone surveyed. But it's not just that. People are worried about their ability to just make ends meet, about job security, especially for younger folks, Gen Z, and, of course, healthcare costs. These aren't abstract fears. These are the things keeping people up at night.
Okay, but this is where it gets really weird. Even with all that anxiety we just talked about, what people are actually doing with their wallets tells a completely different story. And just so we're all on the same page, let's do a quick refresher. What even is a recession, technically? It's not just a bad feeling or a scary headline. It's a real, significant, widespread, and prolonged downturn in economic activity. The classic definition is 2 straight quarters where the gross domestic product, or GDP, actually falls.
Okay, so people are definitely feeling the pressure. I mean, look at this number. A whopping 75% of consumers say they're trading down, buying cheaper products. That makes perfect sense, right? It lines up with all the pessimism we saw earlier. But
here's the twist. Almost 40% of those same people who are trading down also say they still plan to splurge. So think about that. You're buying the generic brand of cereal, but you're also treating yourself to something nice. This is a classic example of what economists call the lipstick effect. You cut back on the big stuff, but still allow for those small, affordable luxury.
So if the numbers are this contradictory, it's pretty clear something else is going on. It's not just about the economy, it's about the vibes. We have to look at what's happening inside our heads.
And that brings us to this great term you might have heard, Vibecession. It was coined by Kyla Scanlon back in 2022, and it perfectly describes this situation. It's when the economic data is actually okay, but public sentiment, the vibe, is just terrible. It feels like a recession, even if the numbers say we're not in one.
And this negative vibe leads to another trend, doom spending. This is fascinating. It's the idea that when those big long-term goals, like say buying a house or even retiring someday, feel completely out of reach, you just give up. And instead, you spend money on small luxuries and immediate pleasures to cope with the anxiety about the future.
And this isn't just some academic theory. Listen to this comment from a Reddit user. Can't afford a house, so we splurge a little bit on expensive dinners to make life just a little bit tolerable while rotting in our apartment. Wow. That really says it all, doesn't it? It shows how the definition of a splurge has totally changed.
And here's another one that hits just as hard. Yeah, it's going to cost me the same to buy 40 new iPhones to put a down payment on a house. Why not splurge now on a new phone when the prospect of owning a house is completely out of reach? For a lot of people, the math has completely changed. If those long-term goals feel impossible, spending on something you can actually enjoy right now doesn't feel irresponsible, it feels rational.
Okay, but wait, there's another layer to this whole puzzle, and it's a big one. It turns out that politics plays a huge role in how we see our economic reality.
Just take a look at this data from the New York Fed. It shows what happened to financial optimism right after the 2016 election. In counties that voted Republican, optimism just shot through the roof. But in Democratic counties, it barely budged.
It's like people's entire economic outlook flipped overnight, depending on who won.
But here's the really strange part. Even with that massive shift in how people said they felt, it didn't actually lead to any real change in spending habits along party lines. So once again, we see this huge disconnect between what we say we feel about the economy and what we actually do with our money.
So let's bring this all together. What does this whole paradox actually mean for you, for businesses, and for the banking sector? Because this isn't just some interesting thought experiment, it has real-world consequences.
Well, for banks and lenders, it's a real challenge. How do you figure out risk when people say they're broke but are still spending and taking on debt? For investors, it means you can't just read the headlines about consumer sentiment. You have to follow the actual spending data. For businesses, it's a balancing act. You need value options for the cautious shoppers, but also premium stuff for the doom spenders. And for all of us at home, it's a pretty good reminder to really think about our own spending and make sure it's lining up with our long-term goals, even when everything feels so uncertain.
Which really leaves us with this one big question to chew on. In today's economy, should we trust the data or should we trust the vibes? In a world where our feelings and our politics seem to be driving things just as much as the hard numbers, what's the better predictor of what's coming next?
For the latest banking news, deep economic insights, and all the financial trends you need to know about, be sure to visit us at banksandbankers.com.
And hey, while you're here, don't forget to like this, subscribe, and definitely turn on those notifications so you never miss another one of our expert explainers. Thanks for tuning in.